Hello, everybody. In our paper, German AI Startups and AI Ethics, using a social practice lens for assessing and implementing socio-technical innovation, we are presenting qualitative research on ethics and AI in German AI startups. Our research fills the knowledge gap on how practitioners in AI startups specifically think about and operationalize AI ethics and on developing culturally grounded notions of AI ethics.
We are making three contributions. First, we introduce a social practice-based approach for understanding ethical AI. This approach decenters the individual and focuses on the practice as a unit of inquiry. Practices have different elements that stabilize a practice as a whole through individual repetition that link up practice elements. The social practice theory approach allows us to understand what the elements of AI ethics practices are and how these elements connect and stabilize concretely, especially vis-a-vis cultural specificity and historical context.
Second, we present empirical findings from our study on the operationalization of ethics in German AI startups to suggest an anatomy of AI ethics. The skeleton of AI ethics is comprised of 5 connected and mutually constitutive AI ethics elements: principles, needs, narratives, ethics, materials, and cultural genealogy. Needs are business needs that are served through various interpretations of AI ethics. These needs are from very specific social, political, and commercial contexts, such as German data protection regulation. Narratives are concrete stories that inform the organizational and social logics that underpin the principles and their enactment. For example, the driving narrative of the principle responsibility was, if everybody takes seriously their responsibility to articulate their personal ethical concerns, then the company will be more ethical as a whole. Ethics materials are concrete objects, processes, roles, tools, or infrastructures focused on AI ethics, such as Slack channels dedicated to AI ethics or internal working groups. Culture genealogies are the culturally specific and distinct histories and genealogies of ethical AI. Whilst these 5 elements scaffold AI ethics, they are brought to life by the soft tissue of this anatomy, the way in which principles, needs, narratives, ethics materials, and cultural genealogy are enacted in an interconnected way. In other words, the skeleton is the what of AI ethics in German startups, and the soft tissue is the how. In our paper, we illustrate this dynamic by discussing the enactment of the principle Mitbestimmung and Verantwortung, codetermination and responsibility, respectively.
Our third contribution is a matrix that researchers and practitioners can use themselves to create their own internal anatomy of AI ethics, to capture continuities rather than disruptions and breakages in their professional practice when they wish to integrate socio-technical innovation. This can facilitate the location of cultural and organizational connection points to technical approaches. The first set of questions allows them to map the anatomy of existing AI ethics practices within their organization. The second set of questions allows them to map and assess existing technical and socio-technical innovations as it is relevant to both the regulatory requirements and their own organizational practices.
We suggest that future work first expand the production of qualitative empirical research on the professional practices of ethics and AI development across different cultural contexts and specifically non-Western contexts and domains of application. Second, we think people should refine the methodology and further detail and strengthen the conceptual framework of social practice theory, especially vis-a-vis notions of politicality, power, intersectionality, and justice. And third, we suggest to test a usable framework for practical implementation. We hope this agenda will help close the gap between technical, normative, and socio-technical innovation on fairness, accountability, and transparency, and qualitative research on AI design practices and the impact of AI on social life. Thank you for listening, and please do not hesitate to reach out to us.